Every empire in history follows the same pattern before collapse. First, they dominate through education and innovation, then they become the strongest military power, then they control global trade, eventually their currency becomes the world's reserve. They enjoy decades of peace and prosperity, but beneath the surface the cracks begin. Massive debt accumulates to maintain the empire, wealth gaps explode creating internal conflict, education quality declines as the population becomes complacent, rival powers emerge copying the empire's earlier strengths, then the warning signs flash, the same indicators that appeared before Rome fell, before the Dutch guilder collapsed, before the British pound lost reserve status. These exact same indicators are flashing right now in America in 2025. And history shows when all 8 indicators turn negative simultaneously, empires have 10 to 20 years before catastrophic decline. Not centuries, not generations, but a single decade. We're watching it happen in real time. Ray Dalio studied 500 years of empire cycles. He identified 8 key indicators that predict rises and declines with mathematical precision: education, competitiveness, technology, economic output, trade share, military strength, financial center, and reserve currency status. Every rising empire starts with superior education. They out-educate competitors, producing innovation. Innovation drives competitiveness. Competitiveness generates economic output funds, military expansion. Military power secures trade routes, trade dominance creates financial centers. Financial centers establish reserve currencies. This cycle takes empires from nothing to global dominance in roughly 80 years. But the same cycle works in reverse. First, education quality degrades, then competitiveness falls, innovation moves to rivals. Economic output growth slows, trade share declines, military becomes overextended, financial centers lose importance, finally reserve currency status ends. And this decline also takes roughly 80 years. We can measure exactly where any country is in this cycle. Leave a comment below telling us where you're from and which empire you think is rising while America declines. Also hit that subscribe button because what I'm about to show you about America is current indicator readings will prove we're in the late-stage decline phase that precedes collapse. Let me walk you through each indicator and show you the mathematical certainty of what's coming. Education is the leading indicator that predicts everything else. Empires rise when they have the world's best education systems. America dominated education from 1900 to 1970. We produced more PhDs, more patents, more Nobel Prizes than everyone else combined. That education advantage created our technology, dominance, our economic output, our military power, our reserve currency. But since 1970, American education has been declining relative to competitors. We rank 25th in math, 37th in science. China now graduates 4 times more STEM students than America, test scores falling every decade. College has become debt slavery, not education. We're producing Instagram influencers while China produces engineers. Education decline guarantees decline in everything else with a 20 to 30-year lag. The education collapse of 1970 through 2000 is now manifesting as economic and military decline in 2000 to 2030. Competitiveness follows education with a lag. American companies dominated 1950 to 2000 through superior innovation and productivity. But competitiveness requires constant improvement against rivals. China started at the bottom in 1980, copied everything we did, improved on it. Now Chinese companies are more competitive in manufacturing, in technology, in infrastructure, in renewable energy. American companies financialized instead of innovating. Boeing can't build planes that don't fall apart. Intel lost to TSMC in chips. Detroit got destroyed by Toyota and Tesla. We outsourced manufacturing, then discovered we can't build anything anymore. Loss of competitiveness is permanent because it reflects loss of skills and capital equipment. You can't rebuild 50 years of manufacturing capability in a decade. Once competitors take the lead, it's almost impossible to catch up. Military overextension is the classic empire death trap. America maintains 800 military bases in 80 countries. We spend more on military than the next 10 countries combined. This was sustainable when we were 50% of global GDP. But now we're 22% of global GDP trying to maintain the same empire. The math doesn't work. We borrow money to fund the military. We print money to pay the debt. The currency loses value. Our rivals watch us exhaust ourselves with forever wars while they build economically. Every empire in history fell into this trap. Rome, Britain, Soviet Union all collapsed from military overextension, draining resources from productive economy. America is in year 23 of the Afghanistan and Iraq wars. We've spent $7 trillion and achieved nothing except weakening ourselves while China built economic dominance. Reserve currency status is the last thing lost. It's the lagging indicator that stays even after underlying strength erodes. Britain lost manufacturing dominance in 1870 but kept reserve currency until 1945, 75-year lag. America lost manufacturing dominance in 1980 but still has reserve currency in 2025, 45-year lag. But reserve currency is a privilege that depends on others trusting you. Weaponizing the dollar through sanctions destroyed that trust. Freezing Russia's reserves taught every country that dollar holdings aren't safe. BRICS creating alternatives, central banks dumping dollars for gold. Once reserve status goes, the living standard collapse is immediate. We can't import cheap goods with worthless dollars. Inflation explodes. Empire goes from superpower to regional power in one generation. The wealth gap indicator predicts internal chaos. All empires expand wealth gaps as they mature. The rich capture more of economic output. The middle class shrinks, the poor grow desperate. America's wealth gap is now at levels that historically predict revolution or collapse. The top 1% own more than the bottom 90% combined. This happened in Rome before it fell, in France before revolution, in Britain before decline. The gap becomes unsustainable when the majority realize the system is rigged. They lose faith in institutions, social cohesion collapses, political extremism rises, civil conflict becomes inevitable. You can't maintain an empire when the population at home is at war with itself. America is showing all the symptoms: trust in institutions at all-time lows, political polarization at civil war levels, violent protests, wealth inequality driving populism. History shows this ends in revolution, redistribution, or collapse. If this video showed you the mathematical certainty of empire decline, leave a comment below telling us where you're from and what you think about America's position in the cycle. Share this with everyone who thinks empires last forever, and hit subscribe so you see what happens when all 8 indicators turn negative simultaneously, because we're watching history repeat and most people won't understand until after the collapse.